anymore.
Don't jump!
Where am I? What is this place? And who are you?
I don't know. It's in my house in Tokyo. I'm Masato.
I'm Sam, so I'm an analyst from the famous investment bank Lehman Brothers. I don't know whether you've heard of it. It's the fourth largest bank in the world. So 2008, there's a credit crisis. So it hit Lehman really hard and I'm laid off. My house on mortgage is taken by the bank and everything is just gone so fast with that crisis.
You know what? I'm having a rough time too. Back in 1970s, it was really a boundless prosperity, and I was the owner of the factory at that time, which received lots of orders from abroad, and we exported numerous goods. And each of my colleagues, my neighbors, received much higher wages. They said it is Japan's miracle. And we saved a lot in local banks. And well, we just accustomed to save rather than spend them all because, we don't have other investment tools other than deposit. And so after the golden age, I grew older. It is 1980s. And Japan experienced lots of change. The government said they want to decontrol the market, and later they signed an accord with US. It is your country later. And everyone is saying like Japanese yen is becoming more and more valuable against others. But I don't know why. My factory is losing more and more business. And they just don't order from us. And life is so hard. I have the whole family to support. So I need to find some way out, right? I put all my savings in stocks, I bought another new house in Tokyo, and I thought property never lost value. God, I bet all my savings in stock and housing market, but who knows, suddenly it just lose all its value. I almost need to shut down my business. Oh, it's this time, about the crisis, let's say it first.
Good evening, everyone. Today is 1st of December, 1995. I'm your host, Casey.
I'm Sharon.
I believe everyone now is concerned about the pessimistic financial situation here in Japan. Since 1980s, we have gone through a prosperous growth in stock and real estate market. However, it was followed by a sudden crash in economic growth in late 1980s. Accompanied with the collapse of property market and stock value were stagnation of real GDP growth, persistent unemployment rate, and shrinking domestic fixed investment.
Therefore, today we have invited two guests, the Associate Professor of University of Tokyo, Professor Genji, and the Senior Manager of Bank of Japan, Ms. Minako. We are going to consult some of their opinions on the cause and predictions of this crisis. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, Professor Genji, some people said that the current crisis in Japan is partially related to the political pressure on yen appreciation asserted by the US. Can you explain more for us on this point?
Well, yes, there is indeed a causal relationship because we all know that Japan has been relying heavily on export-oriented industry since 1970s and has benefited a lot from cheap price goods in a trade market. And this price competitiveness is exactly why we have seen such a rapid growth in Japanese manufacturing industries as well as in GDP, especially from 1981 to 1986. However, not too many countries would like to see that, especially America. Therefore, in 1985, the signature of Plaza Accord has forced Japanese yen to appreciate constantly to a certain large degree, which has significantly reduced the Japanese export surplus and hit Japanese export market. And this shrinking manufacturing industries has potentially encouraged the massive capitals to flow into other industries, for example, the real estate industries, the finance industries, as well as the service industries. and this has provided a solid capital foundation to the formation of real estate bubbles.
Now that you have mentioned the formation of bubbles, could you please elaborate more on the process of that?
Sure. Well, the massive capital inflows to the real estate, finance, and service industries has caused the market boom. And at the meantime, the household income has seen a constant and large growth with the increase of GDP, which has led to much more investment in stock market and property market. Besides, the prosperity of Japanese economic growth has successfully convinced Japanese people that the price market will not go down. People are overconfident and they just don't want to believe, or they just don't believe the market will go down. And that is how the bubbles has come into being. And we may take a look at the Japanese asset price fluctuations from 1980s to 1990s. Basically, we have seen a significant increase.
Apart from individuals' contribution to this bubbles formation, could you analyze the role of financial institutions in accelerating this process?
To have a better understanding of this question, we may need to first take a look at the financial system in post-war Japan. We all know that after the Second World War, the state intervention has been not neglectable in Japan's economic miracle. For example, the close relationship between the Ministry of Finance and some big banks on some security companies. During that period, interest rates were strictly controlled by the Ministry of Finance, and the spread between the loan rate and the deposit rate were more or less fixed, which means nearly all financial institutions were guaranteed a certain amount of profits, and they were protected from competition. However, the system would inevitably encounter the challenge of marketization, especially when domestic savings has exceeded domestic investment. And we can see a huge gap here between the savings and the investment, especially in 1970s and in mid-1980s. And under that condition, excessive capital supply would depress the interest rate, which means it is very essential for Japan to adopt a financial regulation system in order to allow more free competition and market-determined interest rate, which is exactly what Japan has did since 1970s and all the way to 1990s.
But isn't market liberalization a good thing?
Well, it can be a good thing, provided that we have corresponding prudential regulation system. But this is not the case in reality. In a globalizing economy, liberalizing domestic market was always accompanied with competition from foreign banks and foreign companies, which means large corporations in Japan can tend to borrow foreign loans, and this forced the Japanese banks to shift their loan target specifically, from large corporations to small and medium-sized firms. And these small and medium-sized firms tend to borrow risky loans and use real estate as collaterals. Once the bubble in the real estate bursts, the sharp property deflation would force these companies to provide extra collaterals. But these companies would usually become insolvent and declare bankruptcy, which means all these defaulting loans now become bad debts to the banks. And this is exactly what happened in 1990s, when the bank assets has shrunk by 17 trillion. At the same time, the stock market collapsed. The stock market has declined from its peak in 1989 to 1992 by more than 60%. And this could explain the substantial non-performing loans we can now see at the market.
Ever since the crisis broke out, the Japanese authorities have issued quite a number of policies. Ms. Minako, could you share with us your opinions regarding to these?
Okay, as Professor mentioned, the Japanese yen was under severe appreciation pressure at that time. Thus, to stimulate domestic economy and encounter appreciation, we decided to ease monetary policy and slash interest rate to a post-war low. It cannot be denied that we succeed in fueling economic growth, but we were also criticized that this prolonged easing policy have worsened bubble as well. Actually, we were quite in a dilemma at the time between low inflation rate in commodity and increasing bubbles in asset and property. As we can see in the figure, the inflation rate between 1986 to 1988 is about 0.5%, which is lower than the target rate at about 2% per year. At the same time, the property price was rising at a speed of 30% annually. Also, US market was large and went through a Black Monday that time, so we delayed raising our interest rate until 1989.
So Bank of Japan eventually decided to adopt the tightening monetary policy in 1989. To what extent do you think it is effective in solving the problem?
Since the first tightening in May 1990, we constantly raised interest rate from initial 2.5% to 6% in August that year. In addition to the interest rate hike, we also adopted regulatory tightening to stop property price from increasing. Well, investors were quite uncertain about official responses and market prospects, and it had an instant and immediate impact on the stock market. The Nikkei index by the 1992 has declined by more than 60% that year. At the same time, people were rushing to sell their properties holding, and housing price started to decline in 1991. Well, however, with that kind of package of fiscal and monetary contraction, Japanese economy fell into a stagnation. So we were quite worried that we had overkilled these bubbles. So in the next stage of reform, we lowered official discount rate several times from 6% to 0.5% currently. And this was the beginning of a series of fiscal stimulus packages.
So that being said, there are quite some similarities and differences between these two financial crises, huh?
Oh, really? Tell me about it.
So, in the stage of crisis development, some similarities can be seen in both of the crises, namely excessive supply of loanable funds, real estate bubbles, over-leveraging of the financial market, and lack of immediate government action. After the Asian financial crisis in the 90s, Asian countries became low in current accounts, lacking foreign capitals while accumulating domestic savings. It supplied a large amount of net inflow of capital to the US market looking for investment. The huge amount of saving by household in Japan created an excess supply of loanable fund. Together with the effect of the Plaza Accord, a large amount of capital in the Japanese market was looking for a higher return investment. Plaza Accord was signed by the US and Japan to allow yen to appreciate in relative to the US dollar. The price of Japanese exports increased and the competitiveness of the export industry dropped. Thus, the original capital from the manufacturing industry sought a better investment in the market. The large amount of free capitals in the economy increases the demand for value holders, and when one is found, the influx of capital raises the price of it, fueling the development of bubbles. In US, real estate bubble was formed in the early 21st century when housing prices grew rapidly for nearly 60% from the first quarter in 2000 to the third quarter of 2007. Franklin Raines, the CEO of Fannie Mae, referred housing as a safe, leveraged investment, and he thought that it will continue to appreciate in value, and home values are expected to rise even faster in that decade than in the 1990s. The confidence in the support of the market and the Americans' emphasis on owning their own properties quickly turned into a self-conforming and later speculative bubble, where confidence and housing prices were simultaneously increasing and deviating from the fundamental. In Japan, government stimulating policy in response to the appreciation of yen, expanded money supply, together with the capital freed up from the manufacturing industry, the housing market was injected large amount of capitals, leading to the development of the housing bubble. Real estate in these two scenarios served as value storing device. From experience before the crisis, property price is unlikely to drop for a significantly long period of time, and its growth over the history of Japan and America was relatively high and stable, making it a popular investment and collateral. The decline in housing market led to a huge drop of the asset prices. Bank and company using real estate as collateral or holding mortgage-backed securities faced solvency issues, and so as the lenders, giving rise to a chain of bankruptcy of banks, financial institutes, and local firms. Over-leveraging can be seen in both economies before the crisis. Property price bubble in US was backed by mortgages, which is highly leveraged investment. The high demand for mortgage-backed securities from financial market led to the popularity of subprime mortgage, which is to general household and investment with significantly higher leverage than the original prime loan. Thus, the level of loss in case of crisis was high, and the resultant huge loss was eventually propagated through the financial sector due to the popularity of mortgage-backed securities. Also, investment banks at the time showed a high leverage ratio. For example, Bear Stearns collapsed with a debt-equity ratio of 35:1. In Japan, as real estate was often used as collateral, and the central bank encouraged lending in stimulating fiscal policies, firms were heavily indebted. Also, due to liberalization of markets, banks actively sought borrowers, giving out large amounts of debt high in default risk. The economic shock thus led to bankruptcy of many medium and small firms. Lack of immediate government action was responsible for the development of the financial crisis. In 2007, the original $700 billion rescue plan that was aimed to provide bailout for banks and insurance companies was denied by liberals due to skepticism, accusing the plan of compensating the mistake of the Wall Street at the expense of public saving. Japanese government has contributed even more to the crisis. In the late 1980s, the Japanese economy recovered from the Endaka recession, but their fiscal policy failed to adjust timely, eventually leading to an overheated economy and the development of the bubble. After the sharp contractionary policy was launched in 1989, it has led the economy into a recession. The government perceived the decline as the start of a regular business cycle and did not respond until the stagnation began and the structural problem started to surface.
Come on, Sam, what were you doing? No time for sleep. Everyone here is working on our subprime mortgage-backed securities.
What year is it?
2008?
Wait, but we can't invest on MBS because the securitization process is just too complex to analyze, and the interconnectivity of the market is too large. Once the real estate bubble bursts, all will just be over. We'll just go bankrupt.
Wait, what are you talking about? Are you having a dream or something? Look at the market. The housing industry has come to a real prosperity. Anyway, even if it is a bubble, we can get out in time before it bursts, right? Don't forget, winter is too big to fill.
We'll probably get a hint if it really will burst. Okay, just we'll get our hand on it.